The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a Marvel project that's layered with meaning, dealing with themes of legacy, history, race, and shared humanity. If you're paying close attention, you may hear some lines of dialogue between all of the fight scenes that mean more than you know. One of the central themes explored throughout The Falcon and the Winter Soldier revolves around Captain America's shield, and what it symbolizes to the rest of the world. To Bucky Barnes, the shield represents family. It is his last remaining link to Steve Rogers and the world he knew in the 1940s before Hydra turned him into the Winter Soldier. To John Walker, the shield represents the high expectations he has to live up to as the new Captain America and a symbol of hope for his country. To Carly Morgenthau, the shield is a symbol of a bygone era and a monument to the people whose stories were erased from history. Like Isaiah Bradley, the Black Soldier Bucky reveals to Sam as a fellow recipient of the serum. Cap's shield means different things to different people, but only Sam seems to view it for what it really is. On its own, it's just a symbol.
Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning.
Steve's legacy defines the shield until it falls into John Walker's hands. When the new Captain America uses it to kill one of the Flag Smashers, the image of the bloodied shield represents a rapid fall from grace because of the man who wields it. Sam finally reclaiming the shield indicates redemption for its damaged reputation, as he redefines what it means to be Captain America. To the majority of the world, Sam Wilson is a hero. He is the Falcon, a member of the Avengers who faced Thanos, the Mad Titan, and his army in Infinity War and Endgame. It could be argued that this heroism is part of Sam's nature. He is a rescuer swooping in to save the day. Sam's first scene in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier features him rescuing someone from Winter Soldier villain George Batroc, aka Batroc the Leaper. Sam's sister Sarah comments on her brother's heroic character in the same episode, when he vows to help save their family's boat and erase their financial struggles with the bank.
To the rescue, huh?
When fans first meet Sam in Captain America the Winter Soldier, he explains that, prior to aiding Steve in the fight against Hydra, he worked as a para-rescueman for the United States Air Force. This establishes Falcon as someone who dedicates his life to rescuing other people. Later, during a conversation with his sister in Episode 5, Sam talks about wanting to make a positive difference in the world, regardless of the boundaries and expectations placed on his shoulders by society. This earlier fond moment between the Wilson siblings shows just how much Sarah understands her brother, and why Sam is the perfect person to pick up the mantle of Captain America. Like Steve Rogers before him, Sam is a hero, always ready to fly to the rescue.
Listen, this suit, it comes with the expectations, brother. You can't just punch your way out of problems anymore.
If this Episode 2 line from The Mask sounds familiar when he says it to John Walker, there's a good reason for that. It's a callback to a similar call for reason in Captain America Civil War.
Steve, you know what's about to happen. Do you really want to punch your way out of this one?
Indeed, both versions of Captain America could have occasionally done better by talking things through instead of rushing in fist first. Lamar's warning foreshadows John Walker's descent throughout the series, culminating in the moment when he kills one of Carly's allies in public. This is the moment that separates Walker from Steve Rogers and establishes that he isn't worthy of being Captain America. When Bucky falls from the train to his supposed death in Captain America the First Avenger, Steve doesn't beat Zola to death with the shield. He keeps his mind on the mission. Even for an Avenger, personal vengeance isn't always the answer. It's a lesson John Walker could stand to learn as well. As the MCU moves forward, maybe we'll see if he does. John Walker's right when it comes to one thing: the super soldier serum isn't all it's cracked up to be. Most people injected with variants of the serum suffered side effects, becoming unstable or even dying.
That serum doesn't exactly have a great track record, no offense.
The serum itself was used by Hydra, who gave it to Bucky and several other Winter Soldier candidates. The other soldiers featured in Civil War are revealed to have been too unstable for Hydra to control, and were frozen in cryostasis until Zemo killed them. With the exception of Steve Rogers and Isaiah Bradley, the serum seems to have had negative effects on almost everyone who's taken it. From the Red Skull to Carly Morgenthau and John Walker, either physically harming them or bringing out their worst qualities.
The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great, bad becomes worse.
Walker's line shows that he understands what a risk the serum poses. This doesn't stop him from taking it, however, highlighting how powerless he feels without the enhanced super strength Steve Rogers had. Walker doesn't seem to fully realize, however, that Steve was more than a strong soldier. He was a good man, and the serum brought out the best in him. Both of them were chosen to be Captain America for different reasons. Walker may be a perfect soldier, but Steve was a good man. Bucky Barnes spent more of his life as a Winter Soldier than he did as himself. Bucky spends over 50 years as a Winter Soldier, programmed to kill with his memory wiped between bouts of cryostasis until he meets Steve again in 2014 during Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Bucky tries to shed the Winter Soldier's identity, but it continues to haunt him. And it isn't until his exile in Wakanda that the programming is finally lifted from his mind. Even then, the Winter Soldier remains a familiar role for him to play. Zemo says as much when Bucky pretends to be his former self in Madripoor, preying on Bucky's insecurities about whether he's changed after all.
Didn't take much for him to fall back into form.
What made Steve the perfect candidate for the Super Soldier Serum? He says it best himself during Captain America: The First Avenger.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
Steve knows what it means to be the little guy, literally. It's a history that makes him more empathetic and is something other super soldiers in the MCU don't seem to have experienced.
The serum never corrupted Steve.
Touché. But there has never been another Steve Rogers, has there?
When Zemo makes this oddly respectful comment about Steve, at the same time, he's unknowingly referencing the original Captain America's similarities with Sam. Sam is another empathetic character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He leads counseling sessions in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, understands Carly's perspective, and tries to reach out to her, and even helps Bucky find some resolution. There isn't another Steve Rogers to pick up the shield, but there is Sam Wilson, and Steve clearly understood that. John Walker's defeat at the hands of the Dora Milaje proves to be the final straw that pushes him towards the Super Soldier Serum in the series' 4th episode. Throughout The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Walker struggles to live up to the legacy of his predecessor. Many characters, including Sam, Bucky, and Zemo, acknowledge that Steve was a rare man, unaffected by the serum's negative side effects. Steve's shoes are hard to fill, even for a veteran as decorated as Walker. Walker struggles to go toe-to-toe against Carly and the Flag Smashers, but it's his loss to the Dora Milaje that humiliates him and drives him to take action. Simply put, he's totally humiliated to be defeated by them.
They weren't even super soldier.
Even without superpowers, the Dora Milaje defeat John in a fight. Their combat training and proficiency with vibranium weaponry are unparalleled. This loss fuels Walker's decision to take the serum so he can feel less inadequate. But what Walker fails to understand is that Steve was more than just his superpowers. Instead of trying to diminish and overpower the Dora Milaje, Steve would have approached him with more respect and diplomacy. This relates to Lamar's earlier line about Walker trying to punch his way out of situations, a near impossible feat when faced with the warrior women of Wakanda. Although Sam and Bucky struggle to get along initially, their relationship evolves throughout The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as they begin to open up to each other and understand the other's point of view. Despite the banter, there's no doubt that by the time they confront Carly at Mama Donia's funeral, they are partners, just as they were with Steve Rogers. John Walker unknowingly marks an important milestone in this relationship when he goads Bucky with a comment about Sam.
Your partner needs backup in there. Do you really want his blood on your hands?
It's one of many things in this series that forces Bucky, a notoriously closed-off individual, to confront the uncomfortable reality that he actually cares about Sam. Sam can handle himself, but the threat of a super soldier like Carly isn't to be taken lightly. Walker plays on Sam's vulnerability as well as Bucky's guilt, as a former Winter Soldier couldn't live with himself if Sam's death was added to his conscience. If any line in the series proves why Sam Wilson should be Captain America, it's his remark to Zemo following his confrontation with Carly in Episode 4.
Blood isn't always the solution.
Zemo argues that Carly has become too radicalized to reason with. In his eyes, she is a danger to society and needs to be killed. Sam points out the hypocrisy of Zemo's absolutist perspective.
Super soldiers cannot be allowed to exist.
Isn't that how gods talk?
It could be argued that Zemo's intentions aren't necessarily evil, though he possesses a ruthless streak that makes him a dangerous person. Like Thanos, Zemo doesn't shy away from killing in his attempts to serve what he sees as the greater good. The Mad Titan believed that the universe had to lose half of its population to survive, and Zemo makes it clear that he views all super soldiers as a threat to human existence that must be exterminated. Sam understands that punching your way out of things isn't the default resolution to conflict. He reasons with Karli and sympathizes with the Flag Smashers' fight, but makes it clear that he can't get behind their violent methods. Unlike John Walker, who responds to Lamar's death by drawing blood, Sam keeps his calm and considers all the options. Fans are introduced to Isaiah Bradley in the series' second episode, but it isn't until episode 5 that his story is truly told. After taking the shield from John Walker, it seems as though Sam intends to give the shield to Isaiah, but Isaiah has other ideas.
Those stars and stripes don't mean nothing good to me.
Isaiah Bradley and Steve Rogers share more similarities than just the serum. While speaking with Sam, Isaiah reveals why he was sent to prison. Fellow super soldiers were captured by enemy forces, prompting officials to abandon them with the intention of blowing up the facility where they were detained to destroy any evidence. Isaiah refused. Unwilling to let them die, he took action.
Those are my men. My brothers, not evidence.
Isaiah rescued the soldiers but was punished for his heroism, imprisoned for 30 years and subjected to experimental tests. With the help of a nurse, Isaiah faked his death and escaped, and his history was buried. If Isaiah's story sounds familiar, it's because it mirrors Steve Rogers' rescue of Bucky and his troops from a Hydra base in Captain America, the First Avenger. Like Isaiah, Steve disobeyed orders to save the lives of his fellow soldiers. Unlike Isaiah, however, he was promoted for his actions, rather than thrown in prison and erased from history. This highlights the deep-rooted racial injustice Isaiah was subjected to, and how differently he was treated as a black man. In the end, only Sam can decide who he is, and whether he wants to be Captain America. Other characters like Isaiah Bradley and Bucky might influence his decision, but ultimately it's Sam who decides to start training with the shield, preparing to take up the mantle Steve handed him. Unlike John Walker, Sam was chosen personally by Steve due to the merit of his character. Bucky admits to Sam during Truth that neither he or Steve considered what it would mean for a black man to be Captain America, prompting Sam to lay some hard truths of his own.
You gotta stop looking to other people to tell you who you are.
This line is as relevant to Sam's situation as it is to Bucky's. Bucky can't let other people decide his identity for him anymore. He's more than 100 years old at this point. It's time for him to start deciding for himself. Likewise, Sam isn't willing to let history's prejudices determine whether he can be Captain America. When his nephews are playing with the shield, we see the world Sam wants to help create. A world where young black boys can be Captain America if they want to. Isaiah Bradley's story should never be forgotten, but Sam is now a part of making a better future that learns from the mistakes of the past, proving that Steve Rogers made the right decision in passing the shield to him. At the beginning of Episode 6, Batroc the Leaper gets what he's been waiting for since Episode 1, a chance to face Sam one-on-one. Adorned in his new Captain America uniform, Sam runs into Batroc, and the latter expresses his frustration over Sam having cost him a lot of money. Shortly after, he mumbles the line, "The robes don't make the monk." It was a blink and you'll miss it moment, as the subtitles were barely on the screen for a second. The line carries a whole lot of weight, and it's a variation of a popular William Shakespeare line. The cowl does not make the monk. Batroc is essentially shading Sam in this moment, who's just officially become Captain America. While looking at his new getup, the villain is telling him that just because he puts on the uniform, that doesn't make him worthy of carrying the mantle. This is especially interesting given that Batroc has once gone toe-to-toe with Steve Rogers in Captain America the Winter Soldier on the hostage-filled S.H.I.E.L.D. ship. It looks like Batroc might have had a little more respect for our first Captain America and not so much for our newest one. In Episode 6, Karli distracts Bucky with a phone call in an effort to gather hostages from the GRC without his interference. Bucky, who should have been smarter than this, falls for Karli's trick. But the two end up having a pretty poignant conversation despite Karli not really listening to her foe. Bucky gives Karli a stern talking to, telling her that though she thinks her cause might justify her actions, in the end the nightmares won't go away. We know this to be true as Bucky suffered from nightmares in Episode 1, ones that he lied about to his therapist. But the line to her that follows turns out to be one of the most personal admissions Bucky could have made, whether Karli realized it or not.
You're gonna remember all the ones you killed.
While this might seem like a piece of advice shared with Karli in an effort to get her to stand down, it's actually a major callback to Captain America: Civil War. In the final battle between Iron Man, Captain America, and Bucky, we hear a powerful variation of the line when the vengeance-fueled Tony has Bucky in a headlock.
Do you even remember them? I remember all of them.
Bucky clearly understands the dangerous path that Karli is on, and its serious repercussions. But unfortunately, she doesn't listen, and she meets her end at the hands of Sharon while battling Sam. When Karli and Sam are fighting one another, the latter takes a pretty decent beating from the enhanced super soldier. Even though Sam has new tech and the shield, Karli still seems to have the upper hand against him, and she swiftly knocks him to the ground more than once. However, Karli doesn't want to hurt Sam and gives him an opportunity to walk away.
Stay down!
No.
You might have picked up on it, and kudos if you did, because this was another major callback to Captain America: Civil War. Once Bucky gets knocked down, Steve and Tony go one-on-one in a heartbreaking battle. Tony gets the upper hand after Friday analyzes Cap's fight pattern, and he knocks Steve down to the ground.
Stay down. Final warning.
After rising, Steve responds with his classic retort.
I could do this all day.
This itself was obviously a throwback to Captain America: The First Avenger, when a tiny Steve spoke the line to a bully in an alley. Who knew all these years later would be referencing the famous moment yet again, but in a way that's unique to Sam. Writer Malcolm Spellman could have easily had Sam say, "I can do this all day," back to Karli. We all know the MCU isn't shy about dropping that quote, but by giving him a different line, it gave him a separate identity from Steve, something crucial to his character's story. Because as the Falcon and the Winter Soldier has shown us in its 6 episodes, we don't need another Steve Rogers as Captain America, we need a Sam Wilson. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about the Marvel Cinematic Universe are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.